This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Hello and welcome to our special coverage of China's political season. I'm Zhong Shi in Beijing. The advisory body, the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, or CPPCC, is discussing key national issues. Soon, some CPPCC members will meet the press and answer questions at the members' corridor. We'll bring you live coverage of the special corridor. Make sure you stay with us right here on CGTN. And our reporter Sun Tianyuan is at the members' corridor, where CPPCC members are expected to speak to the public very soon. Take a listen.
Members of the 14th CPPCC National Committee are scheduled to take questions from reporters very soon on a walkway right behind me. The political advisors may answer on a range of topics and issues, including business, technology, and education, as well as rural development. We're also expecting political advisors from Hong Kong, Macau, and Xinjiang. So we may hear some answers on regional development, such as economic integration and people-to-people exchanges. This is the second group interview with the members of the China's top political advisory body at their annual session in Beijing. On Saturday, 8 political advisors briefed the media on various topics, including new energy, public health, and tourism. The Q&A sessions are known as corridor interviews or pathway interviews because they usually take place on the walkways leading to the main lobby of the Great Hall of the People before or after important meetings. The interviewees could be lawmakers, policy advisors, or ministers. This is considered a great opportunity for journalists from home and abroad to find out about China's achievements over the past few years and its path in the near future. So face-to-face with country's officials, experts, and industry leaders. This year, over 2,000 political advisors of the 14th CPPCC National Committee have gathered in Beijing at their annual session, and we're expecting to hear more from them in a few days.
And earlier, President Xi Jinping visited political advisors attending the annual session of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference. Xi Jinping said authorities must guide the private sector to achieve healthy and high-quality development. She said there should be continued backing for medium and small businesses with guidance and supportive laws. He said finance should support scientific and technological innovation. And he said the private economy should support the transition to high-quality development. He urged vigilance against systemic financial risks, and he called for vitalization of rural industries. President Xi also highlighted that China should continue working to be a leader in the global new energy industry. He also extended greetings and best wishes to female deputies, advisors, and staff at the ongoing 2 sessions, and also to women of all ethnic groups and female compatriots at home and abroad ahead of International Women's Day on March the 8th. And for some discussion, I'm now joined in the studio by Wang Xingsong from Beijing Normal University. He's an associate professor with the School of Social Development and Public Policy. Professor Wang, welcome to our program today. Let's talk about President Xi's visit to the CPPCC. He paid a visit to the members, China's political advisors, which shows he cares a great deal of their work. It's a morale booster. So talk to us about that visit. What do you think was his focus when he visited, when he met with those political advisors?
Right, and if I'm not wrong, President Xi actually visited 2 groups of the CPPCC, and one was the China National Democratic Construction Association, and the other one is the All China Federation of Commerce and Industry. And the first one is one of the 8 political parties that participate in Chinese politics under the leadership of Communist Party of China. And for those who are not extremely familiar with the National Democratic Construction Association, its members are mostly coming from the industry, from the enterprises. So most of the members are entrepreneurs, either from SOEs or from the private sector. And then for the All China Federation of Industry and Commerce, the large majority of the members are from the private sector. So all of that is saying that President Xi Jinping visited these two particular groups of the CPPCC member sessions tells us that he personally was very enthusiastic about the private sector and how the private sector is going to further contribute to the Chinese national economy. But it also symbolizes, his visit also symbolizes that at this moment, the private sector is extremely important because Chinese economy is experiencing this downturn, and we need everyone, including both SOEs and the private sector, to work even harder to contribute to the national economy. And private sector obviously is already a very important and integrated part of Chinese economy. It's creating a lot of revenues and employment. But due to the pandemic control policies, the supply chain may have been interrupted and employment may have been affected negatively. So now it's time for the private sector to regain strength and further contribute to the national economy.
Yeah, especially at a time of economic recovery, we need everybody on board here. And the private sector, as you mentioned, plays such an important role in boosting the vitality of the Chinese economy, especially the small and medium-sized enterprises, which President Xi said should be supported by relevant laws and other regulations. Let's also talk about the new national committee of the CPPCC. 2023 is going to be the first year this new national committee performs their duties. What will be they focusing their efforts on, and how will they be different from their predecessor?
Well, I think in general, CPPCC has played a very important role in China's political participation and political accountability and political consultation. And members, over 2,000 of them, gather in Beijing every March to discuss the most important things in politics and policy making, and they make policy proposals both in Beijing and on a daily basis. So in the past 5 years, we're talking about over 29,000 proposals having been collected from these national members. We are not yet talking about the local members, and there are many local branches of the CPPCC down in local governments. So they are the people who are closer to the community. They are better aware of what's going on down there. They're also very familiar with national politics because they participate through these formal and informal meetings with the national leaders in the party and in the central government. So they also bring down the ideas and policy spirits to the community. So in a sense, they serve as bridges between the party and the state on the one hand and people on the ground on the other. Now, speaking of this new committee, I am very highly hopeful that the new committee is going to further playing their significant role in bringing together the opinions from both sides. And in that sense, they're very important in building a consensus. And national consensus is extremely important in China with a population of 1.4 billion people. It's not unusual people have diversified ideas and opinions, but this is what CPPCC members are doing. They're trying to build a consensus by bridging the gap of information asymmetry, and they create platforms both at national level and down at the grassroots level for people to participate through these platforms.
That's such an interesting point, Professor Wang. I do want to have you talk a little bit more about how proposals from those CPPCC members come together in forming national consensus. You talked about there's the national level political advisors, local level political advisors, and for our viewers that are less familiar with the CPPCC mechanism, this is actually a system of multi-party cooperation and political consultations. So how do their proposals become a consideration point for policymakers at the local level and then at the national level?
Well, that's a very good question. And first of all, we need to understand where the proposals are coming from. And all these national members and local members, by the way, they're not career politicians. They have their full-time jobs. So they do this all voluntarily. Nonetheless, once they become members, they have this responsibility to bring up proposals on behalf of citizens to both national and local governments. So what they do is that they regularly do research trips. Some of these trips are organized by local and national governments, but some of others are organized by where they come from. And so that's where, that's when we need to understand a bit better about the membership of the CPPCC. And there are three major types. And one is the 8 political parties that participate in Chinese politics under the leadership of the Communist Party of China. The other is the people's organizations. And then you have all kinds of sectors, constitutive of all kinds of industries, education, science, and manufacturing, so on and so forth. And then lastly, you have special guests from Hong Kong and Macau. So these members all have the responsibility to do field research trips to understand better issues that are happening on the ground. By doing so, they form proposals. Then they submit proposals to the local and national governments for their responses. And now the responsive rate is really, really high. We're talking about 98% of responsive rate. So it's not like that you submit a proposal and it goes nowhere. No, it's not. It's actually very responsive. And let me give you an example of how a proposal can eventually become a policy. So let's take vocational training as an example. And so now we're talking about a huge problem of unemployment or pressure of unemployment. And part of that pressure is coming from the fact that there is a gap between the graduates from vocational training schools and the huge demand from the manufacturing sector. So on the one hand, we're graduating tens of thousands of vocational training graduates every year. On the other hand, we have a huge demand that's not filled up. For example, we're talking about over 10 million senior manufacturing skilled workers that are not, these positions are not filled. And by 2027, we're talking about 25 million highly skilled manufacturing workers that are in need. So what's happening with this gap is that, number one, overall in this society, a lot of people think that vocational training graduates are not holding a very high social status in comparison to college graduates. Number two is the fact that many of the vocational training schools do not have very highly skilled teachers who haven't even themselves practiced manufacturing or business management. So they simply couldn't teach their graduate. So what's needed is to bridge this gap. So I understand many of the members in past years from the CPPCC and also the NPC delegates have proposed that we need to build this bridge between vocational training schools and the manufacturing sector. So in the past few years, we have seen the government rolling out a new policy, which is to establish these education groups that link businesses on the one hand and the vocational training schools on the other hand, so that the vocational training schools can train their students right on the spot in the factories, in the businesses, so that when they graduate, they know exactly, they have the hands-on experience, they know exactly what's going to happen in the businesses. So see, the proposals brought up by the CPPCC members and also the National People's Delegate is really making influences on policy making.
That's a really great example talking about supply side reforms, really, because you're not supplying what is needed in the workforce in terms of skilled workers in the manufacturing sector. And then with those proposals being answered, as you mentioned, over 95% of response rate, these can become actually policy points. Professor Wang, I do want to press you on something else you said about guests from Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Macau participating in the CPPCC. What is their role?
Well, in terms of Taiwan, and the CPPCC actually has, a number of opportunities for members from Taiwan to participate. One is through one of the 8 political parties called, Taiwan National Self-Government Democratic League, and also through one of the people's organizations called All China Federation of Taiwan Compatriots. So there are 2 sectors in the CPPCC national committee where members from Taiwan can participate. And of course, at the National People's Congress, there's also a delegation coming from Taiwan as well. So all of that is saying that both NPC and CPPCC have created formal and informal platforms and opportunities for members of Taiwan to talk to national leaders and national government and Communist Party of China about their opinions on the reunification, on livelihoods in Taiwan.
Professor Wang,
and so
hold
forth.
that thought. I think we're just moments away from the members' corridor at the Great Hall of the People. Let's take a listen together.
To take questions in concern, and in the interest of time, every reporter can raise only one question. And before raising your question, please identify yourself. Now let's give the floor to the first group of members. Self-introduction. Hello everyone. I am the CPPCC member and China Professional Education Society, Su Hua. Hello everyone. I am also a CPPCC member and the president of Jianxin Group. Good morning everyone. I am a CPPCC member, president of China Political and Legal University, Ma Huaide. Now the floor is open to questions. Thank you. From China Educational Channel. My question goes to member Su Hua. As you know, professional education is closely linked to economic and social development. Yet, in reality, as to the coordination between professional education and usual education, it is the focal points of many parents. So how to better develop professional education so that vocational education could play a bigger role in our societal and economic development? Thank you for the question. Vocational education is closely related to our economic and social development. It boosts people's welfare and entrepreneurship. For one thing, vocational education is to the hearts of the common people, and for another, it matters to national economy and people's welfare. So developing vocational education aims at fulfilling the well-being of the individuals by increasing their wealth and realizing their values. And for another, we must connect education with science and technology, and we must optimize the positioning of vocational education by diversifying its structure. We must further improve the Gaokao for vocational education. According to the Ministry of Education, in 2021, the admittance to the vocational educational institutions registered 5.56 million for the bachelor's degree. And according to certain requirements, the size of occupational education must be further increased so that we could break the bottleneck of those highly skilled people. And those people could find their way to the workforce and to entrepreneurship. I would love to share with you two cases in point. One student is called Liu Xuzhong, who graduated from the vocational school of Dunjiang, which is from the hometown of Huangji. He majored in computer science, and after graduation, he worked in one AI company. He had his training and developed himself well. Last year, I paid visit to a village in Sichuan province called Gaohuai Village, a demonstration village. I witnessed how a group of talents returned back to their hometown after vocational education. And then they turned themselves into the leaders of local wealth creation. He brought culture, arts, and village tourism to life. In the end, they helped increasing the villagers' income and attracted more people working elsewhere to come back home. So, vocational education could benefit not only one individual, but rather the whole households and the local environment. After 7 decades of development, vocational education has developed a great deal. From the 2 missiles and the manned spacecraft, from logistics to catering business and tourism, all industries have to rely on the talent cultivation from vocational education. In many vocational competitions, our candidates have made their achievements. We have generated some champions in those events. So vocational education started to attract people's attention. The spirit of vocational education has a lot of examples. For example, Yuan Longping and even the delivery man, Wan Yong, use their own deeds to interpret their dedication and their pursuit for excellence. That is the spirit of craftsmanship. The talents cultivated through the channel of vocational education must have high levels, together with high diplomas. We follow the pathway of diversified development of those talents. And vocational education enjoys a broad prospect. They can truly make a difference. With high-quality vocational education, we can better spur high-quality economic and social development. Thank you. Thank you, Member Su. Next question. And please raise up your hand. Thank you. From Science and Technology Day, my question goes to Qi Xiangdong. In the last 3 years, affected by COVID-19, some companies bumped into a lot of difficulties. Now, we are starting to recover from the impacts of COVID-19. So what's your take about the prospect of enterprises? And what about their motivation? Thank you for the questions. Speaking of the private economy in China, it has undergone 4 decades of development since reform and opening up. Now the private economy has become the mainstay of our economy. It helps to create jobs, benefit people's well-being, spur innovation, and encourage common prosperity. In the past 3 years, COVID-19 had repeated occurrence, dealing heavy blows to our economy. As to private economy, especially the SMEs, they were under huge pressure with unprecedented challenges. But under the leadership of the CPC, we have steadfastly supported the development of private economy by creating a more favorable environment of growth. We take solid steps to support their growth. We have good public opinion and a good environment for their businesses. We have offered some credit treatment and IPR protection policies, and we maintain a good relationship between the government and the private economy. We conquered a lot of difficulties by implementing those measures and echo the call of the society and the private enterprises, boosting their confidence in their growth. Take the reduction of charges and taxation as an example. In the last 1 year, the newly reduction and postponement of taxation registered 4.15 trillion yuan. The SMEs truly felt the aggressive support from the government in 2022. Against that backdrop, tens of millions of enterprises have sailed against the waves, and a batch of private enterprises have not cut their workforce. They have helped to stabilize the job posts and conquer many difficulties to recover from the pandemic, laying a solid foundation for our economic recovery. When President Xi Jinping visited the CPPCC members, he gave instructions, and we entrepreneurs learned the spirits from President Xi Jinping. The entrepreneurs were greatly motivated by his words to do a good business. Such high spirits come from the support of the Chinese government. The 20th National Congress stated that we must support the scaling up of the private economy. The government work report further specified that the major task of our economy is to adhere to the principles of never wavering. And that shows the stance of the Chinese government and the CPC to support the private economy. And we will go all out to make the best of it. And also, the high spirits come from the resilience of Chinese economy. We have the advantage of a socialist system and the market-based system. We have a vast market, and we have complete structure of products, and we are also highly innovative. All of those are the edges of the private economy. They will enjoy very rare opportunities of development. Such high spirits also come from the entrepreneurship coming from the past 4 decades of reform and opening up. Rightly because of that entrepreneurship, the group of Chinese entrepreneurs could pioneer and open new chapters of development. Embarking on the road of the Chinese way of reform and opening up, we must have dedication to development. We must lean more towards the public goods when doing our business. Thank you. The next question. Thank you. From the Jurisprudence Daily, my question goes to Member Ma. In recent years, the job seeking of the college graduates were the high points of the society. And as the president of a university, you must be under pressure. How do you think can those graduates find a better job? Thank you for the question. Indeed, in those years, the graduates' job seeking was the focus. And this year, the graduates will stand at the number of 11.58 million. And that put more high pressure on our high learning institutions. Job seeking is the basic well-being of people's benefits, and the college graduates were rare resources of manpower. So their job-seeking opportunities matter to their individuals and their family members, as well as to the society in our future. That's why the CPC and the Chinese government put high premium on that issue, with a lot of policies in place, and they have prepared a lot of connection between the supply side and the demand side. And many industries have released a lot of job openings. As to higher learning institutions, job seeking is the focal point of our work. We have done a lot to help the college graduates to find a job so that they could take the good first step. For your information, in the past 1 decade, CUPL has cultivated a batch of fine talents who find their jobs in the, for example, legal firms or the arbitration institutions, and about 3,300 graduates echo the call of the government to go to the Western China, the bordering areas, and the remote areas to serve the local people. For example, Ouyang Guohua, one of our college graduates, went to Yili Prefecture in Xinjiang Autonomous Region. He is part of the drive of the local governance. The local people did feel that justice and fairness are around them. Liu Yonggang, another graduate from 2018, went back to Inner Mongolia, his hometown, as a local teacher. With his education, he returned to his hometown. And the examples are not exhausted yet. So in this new era, the college graduates go to wherever they are needed by the country. They serve and sacrifice for their motherland. How to find a suitable job? First of all, we must have a good state of mind. We must find the suitable jobs for ourselves. And secondly, we must start from the grassroots level. The grassroots are the starting point of our occupation. They pave the way for our future career development. On different posts, in different industries and fields, finding a job is just the starting point, not the destination. So we must be down to earth to do a good job from the beginning, which will be the treasure of our lifetime. We have a building called Zhigong Building, and the banner said, "We serve the great many." That is an alarm to all of us, which means we must be daring to shoulder big responsibilities. While striving for the better, we will have the earnings of happiness and joy. Sometimes we may have challenges and setbacks. So I would love to say to you that we must create our own splendor in this new era. And no matter what is environment, favorable or unfavorable, we must stay true to our initial missions and integrate our dreams into this new era. And the flower of youth could bloom in the most needed places of the motherland. Thank you all. Now the second group of members.
Please introduce yourselves. My name is Chung Se. I'm a CPPCC member of the party leadership group of the Emergency Management Department. Good morning. I'm a CPPCC member from the Xinjiang Uyghur ethnic group. I'm a startup businessman. Now the floor is open for questions. First question, please. Thank you very much. I'm with China Media Group. My question is directed to Chung Se. Fire control is one important job of emergency management, and firefighters, they have to rush to the front where they are mostly needed, and they are also recognized as the angels in blue. So tell us more about your job. Thank you very much for your question. The National Comprehensive Emergency Management Team undertakes the responsibility of addressing disasters and delivering disaster relief. Our team is standing by 24/7 around the clock. We try to deliver safety to the general public, and we are always ready In every 15 seconds, there is a call for disaster relief or emergency help. Each and every year, we respond to more than 2 million calls, and we rescue more than 400,000 people in disaster. With the deepening of reforms, our service has expanded. We are responding to more calls from the society. In the meantime, we are also undertaking prevention of fire incidents. We are always standing by to guard against potential fire incidents, and this is the routine of our work. Blue Angels can be trusted. We are reliable because we are a team built for the people. We are always serving the people and delivering safety to the general public, and this is our responsibility. What I'm mostly impressed is that last year there was an emergency related to a collapsed building, and I stand on the site for 6 consecutive days. The 19th person rescued was a female. Both of her legs were under the debris of the building, but our firefighters overcome the obstacles and delivered a great rescue channel for her. And she said that, "Are you from the 119 hotline? I always believed that you would come to me for rescue." The praise and compliment of the general public have always been the #1 motivation of our work. We have never given up on people. As long as there is one tiny slim of hope, we would try our best. Most of our firefighters, from the Generation Z group, we spend a lot of time doing practice every day, and putting themselves into harm's way, no matter it is in spring or in winter. They have sweat from inside out. Their sweat oftentimes, their shirts often get soaked with sweat. They are always standing by with a great preparedness. They are bold enough to walk into harm's way, and from them, I can feel the power and patriotism of the young generation. I also see that there is hope and there is prospect of this young team in the future. Entering into the new era, the National Emergency Rescue Team will follow through the Xi Jinping thought of socialism with China's characteristics. For the new era, we will transform our functions and be very strict in terms of training and constantly improve our preparedness and capability in addressing fire incidents and other emergencies, so that we can provide a guarantee for socialist construction and serve the construction of a better country and protect people's properties. Next question, please. Thank you very much. I'm with the paper. My question is directed to Haili from Xinjiang. You are a young entrepreneur. How did you produce those short micro video clips to tell the story of Xinjiang? Are there any memories or stories that you want to share with us? Well, thank you very much for your question. I like reading the news from the paper and talking about small video clips. When I was a kid, I like to film those interesting stories of the kids living in my neighborhood. I broadcast and play the videos in my neighborhoods, and they like to watch the funny and interesting stories taking place in my neighborhood. And starting from that time, I made a decision to record my life, the stories of Xinjiang and the delicious food of Xinjiang, and then tell it to the general public. And I want to tell the story of how different ethnic groups mingle in Xinjiang. After many years, I have produced a lot of videos and they have entertained the locals in Xinjiang. They have also entertained the fans and followers in China and in the world. A lot of the followers, they leave comment under our videos that they like Xinjiang and they like how humorous the people in Xinjiang are. So welcome to Xinjiang so that you can make more friends in Xinjiang. To come to your second question, talking about the production of macro videos, let me share with you one story. It was 6 to 7 years ago. I went to a special school for kids with hearing difficulties. I had a lot of excitement. I brought all those funny stories to them. I wanted to play the videos on a big screen, but when I arrived there, I found out that the situation was not as expected as before going to that school. A lot of the kids, they have hearing difficulties. They cannot feel the music. They cannot hear the sound, and they were frustrated. Seeing their frustration on their faces, I felt very sorry, and I reflected upon potentially new production ways so that we can cut ourselves off with videos and sound. So that is why I decided to produce pantomimes. And then I remember in one afternoon, we brought our pantomime to the kids and we played it on the big screen. These little kids, they were sitting in front of this big screen. It was a moment of the sunset. I remember very vividly how they burst into laughter, how they got immersed into those beautiful pantomimes, and that was a very impressive moment. I don't like tears, but I couldn't help the other day, and I shed a lot of tears. And starting from that day, I was determined to understand the story of more people. I became more engaged in the production of videos for public good. I go to the nursery homes, I go to the firefighting department, I go to all the different groups of people to deliver our videos to them, to bring joy to them. So I hope that in the future, more and more young people can join the self-media industry and join with us to create better contents and to amplify the positive energy. Last but not least, I would like to give you some commercials. And now it's spring. Welcome to Xinjiang. Make some friends there. Dance the Xinjiang dance and take some videos and record the beautiful story of Xinjiang and tell the story of Xinjiang. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Haini, and thank you to both members. Next group of members, please.
Self-introduction. Hello everyone, I am the member of the CPPCC and president of the All China Federation of Industry and Commerce. Hello, I am CPPCC member and the Macau Committee member Ma Zhiyi. Hello everyone, I am the member of the CPPCC, Jiang Liping. Now the floor is open to questions.
好，东区这位穿红色衣服的记者提问。
好的，谢谢主持人。香港大公文汇传媒集团记者提问。那我的问题呢是给到何超琼委员。我们知道今年
Thank you for the question, and my question goes to He, member He. My question is, have you ever felt the Greater Bay Area's synergy effect? And under the plan, what is the edge of Hong Kong? How to grasp the opportunities of the Greater Bay Area? Thank you for the questions. Some people take me as a local from Hong Kong, and some others take me as a local from Macau, I said that I come from this Greater Bay Area. We drink from the same rivers and we share the Southern China culture. We prefer the same local porridge, and we also share the similar spirit of industriousness. The Greater Bay Area plan was introduced in 2019. The cities in the Greater Bay Area embrace the new opportunities of development, particularly in terms of how to release the synergy effect. We must make better use of the supportive national policies to complement each other. Actually, from the beginning scope of 9+2 cities, the real effects benefit more cities. The total population was 86 million, and the economic aggregate was 12.6 trillion RMB yuan. What were those numbers standing for? I see vast markets, abundant manpower, and limitless development potential. Hong Kong has entered into the new stage of development, and the Greater Bay Area development would be the vast stage for Hong Kong SAR. And Hong Kong is a highly international city. It is the international navigation center and aviation center and financial center. It is well known for its service industry. Added by the SAR effect, Hong Kong would be the window of going global and introducing from elsewhere. We must grasp the opportunities of this Greater Bay Area policy so as to better empower ourselves and dive into the national development. Take me as an example. In the past 5 years, I have been dedicated to this work. I started my cooperation with many players in this field 25 years ago, when Hong Kong SAR went back to the embrace of the motherland, and the reform policy was put to the ground, and the Delta River area already exhibited its potential of growth. I saw it, and I deeply felt that Hong Kong must share that benefits with others. And I decided to go into this Bay Area development since 1999, and since then the Chinese government supported the cooperation between the private sector and the SOEs to develop the maritime business. Hong Kong gave play to its unique advantage in terms of the transportation hub positioning of Hong Kong. That is the starting point of Hong Kong's growth. Till today, we have witnessed the establishment of Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge connecting the three places. Fortunately, I could be part of this work and continue this job. Also, Hong Kong boasts the unique transportation advantage to connect the maritime, the airways, and the land transportation. I am a participant of that project, and I'm very proud of it. Actually, Hong Kong and Macau share the same roots with 9 other cities in the Greater Bay Area. We are from one big family, and we bear that in mind. As long as we aim at the same targets and work with one mind and one heart, and better harness the power of the national economy, we could further develop ourselves. And I am convinced that the Greater Bay Area would help to realize the Chinese modernization and realize the Chinese dream with our due contribution and manifestation. We also hope to contribute to building a community of shared future for mankind with our positive example and energy. Thank you.
谢谢何委员。
Thank you, Member He. Next
请
question.
举手示意。好，请 C 区那位男记者。
谢谢主持人，我是中国日报的记者。
From China
我的问
Daily.
题呢是想提给来自澳门的
My
马科技委
question
员
goes to
马委员您好。
Member Ma
看到国家
from
出台了
Macau.
很多有利于大湾区建设
We
还
have
有
seen a
港澳
lot
青
of
年人
new
才发展
policies
的
coming
政策。
out to
所以想
support
请
the
问您
young
作为
talents
来自
growth
澳门的
in
全国政协
Hong
委
Kong
员
and
您在
Macau.
帮助
As a
更多的澳
member
门
of
青年积极融入
CPPCC
国家
from
发展大局
Macau,
方面都做了哪些工作，
what's the
以及
job
还有
you
哪
have
些
done
体会
in
呢？谢
terms
谢。
of integrating into the Greater Bay Area?
非常感谢这位记者朋友的提问。
Thank you for the
澳门回
question.
归20多年来，
Macau has returned to the motherland for 20 years,
实现了经济社会各个领域的
and
蓬
we
勃发
have
展，
realized
取得了
the
历年进
growth
步的
of
成
our
就。
economy and
在
our
这过程中，
society.
澳
In
门
this
的青年
process,
无疑是一支重要的
the
力量。
local talents play a big role.
我非常重视跟青年朋友的交流，
I value
鼓励他们树
my
立目标，
communication
支持
with the
融入国家
youth.
的发
I
展大
encourage
局。
them to be
我
part
曾
of
经
the
举办
national
过多
growth.
次的政协委员
I
走进校园的活动，
used to hold a lot of
邀请政
events
协
to go
委
to the
员给
campus
学生
by
讲述
inviting
他
the
们的奋斗故
CPPCC
事，
members to share
讲
their
述国家的
stories.
发展与
And
改革的成就，
those stories were mostly
增进
about their
他们对
own
国家的
growth
认
and
同
the
感和
achievements
归
of
属
the
感。
nation so
我
that
很高
those
兴的
young
是，
people on
几
campus
年
could
来
have
我
higher
们的活
self-identity.
动已经覆盖了澳
I'm
门
quite
30多
relieved
所
that now
澳
these
大众院
series
校
of events have
参与
covered
的
almost
师生
30
超
different
过11000多
campuses.
人。
Over 11,000 faculties have
有
heard
青
the
年学生
stories.
跟我讲，
Some
过去
young
他们感
students
觉
approached
政
me
协非常神秘，
saying that
但是通过参与
previously
活动
they
后，
thought those
他们发觉
CPPCC
原来
members were
政
quite
协就
mysterious,
在
but
他们
after
的
those
身旁。
events, they found
各
those
行各业
CPPCC
都可以
members
通过
right
自己的
beside
奋
them.
斗，成为政
Members
协的
from
一份子。
different
这
industries
正是我们举
have
办活动
strived
的初
very
心。
hard, and those were
为学生的成长
manifestations
成
of the
才
initial
产生了
missions,
深远的
and
影
those
响。
young talents
增进
have
他
been
们对国家的
greatly
认同，
incentivized. They
让
have
爱国
higher
爱澳
identity
的
of
观念在
their
一代又
motherland.
一代的澳门青年
And
心
such
中
a
生根
patriotic
萌芽。
spirits must be deeply rooted in the
我都
hearts
鼓
of
励澳门
generations
的
of
青年
Macau
到内
young
地去
talents.
走，
I encourage
亲身
those young
感受
people in Macau to
亲眼
go
目
to
睹
the Chinese
国家
mainland
的发
to
展与
witness
变
in
化。
person the changes
2021
and
年，
transformations of
我
this
主持
nation.
澳门的政协委员与澳门的青年赴贵州崇江县考察交流，
I used to
哪里
take
是
a delegation
澳
of
门
Macau
对口
young
帮扶的
people
县。
to the villages.
在走访的过程中，
In my
每位
visits
青
to the
年
field
都
in those
付出
poor counties,
为祖国的为
all the
村
young
民
people
生活
were
的巨
amazed
大改
by
善
the huge transformation and
而表示
improvement
的
of local
惊
life.
叹和高兴。在推进青年的工作过程中，
In the
我发现
meantime,
越来越多的
in my
港澳
work
青年
of helping
十分
and
关
serving
心
the young,
粤港澳大
I
湾区
realized that many
及
young
横琴
people
粤澳深
are
度
quite
合作区的
concerned
建设，
about the development of the
从
Greater Bay
中
Area.
央以及广东省
From the central government
各个层
to
面
Guangdong provincial
都出
and
台
municipal people's
有
governments,
利港澳人才
there
发
have
展
been
的
the
一些政策，
introduction of a series of supportive
让他们
policies
深
to
度
develop
融
the
入
young.
大湾区，
The
提
young
供一
were
个
encouraged
便利的
to be
条件
deeply
和平
interwoven
台。
into the Greater Bay
曾
Area
经
by
我跟一
offering
个
some
澳门的
favorable
青年创
platforms.
业者交谈
I
过，
used to talk
他
with
们最初的时候在
an
澳门创
entrepreneur
业，
of a startup company.
但是很难请到合适的研发人
That
才。
entrepreneur said that
几年前
it was difficult
他
to
们把
invite
公司的研
some
发部
young
门
talents
搬到
into
审核
their
区，
startup company.
现
So
在
they
已
moved.
经拥有了一支中等规模的研发
Now
团队。
they have an
作为澳区
intermediate
的全国政
size
协委员，
R&D team.
我会继续
So
努力，
as the policy
通过各种
advisor,
方法
I will
为
do my best
澳门的青年
and
解
go
读
to all
更多
means
国
to
家
interpret
以及
more national
大湾
policies for the
区
Macau
的有利
people,
的政策，
especially those favorable policies for the
让他
Greater
们
Bay
能够把
Area,
握住
so that
时
those
代
young
的机
people
遇，
could feel the
继续融
pulse
入国家
of
的
this
发展大
era
局，
and be part
为
of the
新时
national
代祖国的
development.
发展贡献他们的智慧和
Therefore,
力
they
量。
could
谢谢
contribute
各位。
to the national
谢谢
development.
马委员。 委员，请记者继续提问。
Next question, please.
好，请动起这位穿蓝色西装的女记者。
谢谢主持人。
Thank you
我是
very
人民
much.
政协报全媒
I'm
体记
with
者。我的
the
问题提给张丽
CPPCC
萍委员。
daily. My
我了
question
解到
is
您是
to
连
Zhang
任
Liping.
3届的台籍全国政协
So
委员。
you're from
您能否
Taiwan
分享
and
一
you are
下对
serving
台湾
as a
这片故土的印
CPPCC
象？
member
在
for
多年的
the
履职
third
工作中，
consecutive
您
term.
又是如
Tell
何
us
跨
more
越先
about
前的海峡，去
your
助力推
hometown
动
and
两岸
over
关
the
系发
years,
展的？
how did
谢谢。
you promote cross-strait relations?
谢谢，
Thank you very
大
much
家都坚
for your
信
question.
民族复兴、
Everybody believes
是大
that
势所
national
趋，大
rejuvenation
义所
and
在。
the reunification of the country are the tide of the time and suits the needs of the
祖辈
people.
扎根在台湾。
I grew
10
up
几年
in
前，
Hubei,
我
but
第一
my
次回台南祭祖，
great-grandfathers, they're from Taiwan, and a couple of years ago, I paid a visit back to Taiwan.
亲切。
I felt very sentimental to my hometown. Over the past decades, I have been working and living in Wuhan of Hubei province. Each time
宝岛公园、
I
高雄社区，
walk on the Taiwan road,
两岸一家亲，同胞
I
携
feel
手
that
行，
both
在
sides of the
双向
street
奔赴
belong to
中
one
前
family.
景光明。
And when we hold our hands
在
together,
台
we
盟
have a
工作，
promising future.
我结识了很
I'm also
多
working
台湾
at
同胞。
the League of Taiwan Compatriots. I have made friends with a lot of compatriots in Taiwan.
优良传统，
I have
在他们
felt
身上
very strongly
闪耀着
that they
光
are
芒。
brimming with these
我看
fine
到
traditions of
很
the
多
Chinese
台湾
culture.
同胞，每年农历
Many
4月
Taiwan
26
compatriots
会在湖北随州
on April 26th of the lunar calendar, they would come to Suizhou of
举个节上，
Hubei
相
province
信始祖。
to pay tribute to their ancestors.
台湾嘉义县中埔乡
In Jiayi County
有
of Taiwan,
每年农历3月3
each and every year, on March the 3rd and September the 9th of the lunar calendar, they would come to Wudang of Hubei province to pay tribute to their ancestors. We are just like family members getting together
我随
every
团
year.
去台湾交流，
In 2001,
专
I
程前往
led a delegation to Taiwan. I paid a visit
乡
to
亲们
Yingpu village.
热情相迎，
The locals there
一见面
welcomed us with
就拉住
open
我的
arms,
手，
and when we met,
激动地
they
说，
hold our hands.
大陆
And they said,
亲人来了。
Our family members from the
感人的一
mainland
幕
have
在
come,
我脑海
and
里
that was a
久
moving
久
moment
回荡。
that lingered for a very long
我有一
time
位台
in
北
my
朋友
mind. I
老
have
蔡
a close friend,
90
Mr. Chai
年代
from
末
Taipei.
老蔡
In the late
带着资金
1990s,
和技术，
Mr. Chai
只身
brought
闯荡。
capital and technology
我们
to
陪
the
着他
mainland and studied his
乘一
business.
批火车，
We
踩
took
乡间小
the
路，
train and
一个
we
个
walked
城市
the
考察，
smart
一
paths
间间
in
农
the
场参
countryside.
观。
We visited
他
many
开办了
factory
奶
plants
牛养
and
殖
the
场
crop field,
和
and he
葡萄
studied
园。
a dairy product and
这些
a
年，
uh,
老蔡事
grapeyard.
业发展
Over
稳
the
定，
years, Mr. Chai's
他的
business
3个
has
孩子
grown
都
steadily.
考上了
All
在武汉
the
的
kids,
大学。
all 3 kids of him
我
entered
去宜昌
universities
看他，
in Wuhan.
他
I
专
paid a
门
visit to
为我们
Yichang.
煮了一
I
壶
paid a visit to
新
him
鲜
in
的牛
Yichang,
奶，
and he gave us a
这牛
fresh
奶
bowl of milk.
甜在嘴上，软在心头。
And it's not just sweet in our mouths, it's
我
sweet in
看
our
到
minds as
祖国
well.
大陆
I
始
saw
终敞开
with
胸怀，
great pleasure
期
that
待
the
友
mainland is always
秉持
welcoming
尊重
our
关爱
compatriots with
造福
open arms, and we
两
have
岸
been
同
taking
胞的
care
友
of
谊，
the
推动
benefits of
两岸深化
compatriots on both
经济
sides.
文化
We have been
交
deepening
流合作
economic and
和各
cultural
领域
ties
融合发展。
between the two
以我们
streets
湖北为例，
in all
截至
different
去年，
sectors. Take Hubei, for example, as the event of last year. Hubei had introduced multiple policies to
交
promote
流合作的举
cross-strait
措，
relations
取得
in many
了
different
良好
areas.
效果。
Satisfactory
在
results
俄
have been
3500多名
gained.
常驻台
In
胞
Hubei, we
以
have
及
more
近
than
3000
3,500
台资企
compatriots
业
from Taiwan, and
实实
also
在在
quite a number
受益。
of companies established by Taiwan
相信
compatriots, and they have
血
benefited
流水的
enormously
亲
from
戚
those policies.
定能跨越
The
前
blood
程的海
ties
峡，
across the street
让我们
can
一路欢歌
transcend
坐着高铁去台
and go
北，
beyond the
让
street.
台湾
And
乡
we hope
亲
that one day we can
说
take
走
the bullet
就
train
走，
to Taiwan so
乘着
that
飞机
our
上
Taiwan
当，
compatriots they can travel to the mainland
坚
and travel
信
to Wudang of
两
Hubei
岸人民
by airplanes
令人更
as
加
well.
紧密
I
地
believe that people
手
on
拉
both
手，
sides of the street
肩
can
并
hold
肩，
their hands together,
心连
walk
心，
side by side,
共创
have a greater bond emotionally and jointly create the great endeavor of national rejuvenation. Thank you very much, Mr. Jiang, and thank you to three of you for accepting the interview. And thank you to all the journalists. And this is the end of today's Members Corridor. On the afternoon of March the 11th, we are going to put up the third Members Corridor. Please stay tuned. Thank you.
8 members have spoken at the Members Corridor, providing their insight into their respective fields and really just giving us that important glimpse into what they care about the most and why they are bringing with them the proposals this year. Let's talk about all of this with my studio guest, Professor Wang Xingsong. Again, Professor, as you mentioned, they're not career politicians. Each and every one of them has a full-time day job, and once a year they come together as national political advisors and propose what they find the most important in their respective discipline. What is your overall impression of what they said just now?
Yeah, I'm really impressed by the vision and insights that they brought with them, coming from various backgrounds. And actually, I'm seeing connections among all these members and their opinions. So, for example, a couple of members were talking about the supply of human resources in terms of vocational training, vocational education, and college graduates. And we obviously under this pressure of creating employment opportunities, but at the same time, we should be also optimistic that there are human resources that can make a great contribution to the national economy. On the other hand, we have a couple of members who are talking about the abundant opportunities that are arising right now in China. For example, one member from Macau was talking about, from Hong Kong was talking about the Greater Bay Area, which connects 9 Guangdong provincial cities as well as Hong Kong and Macau. And so we're talking about a region that has an economic size comparable to that of South Korea or Italy. So it's a huge economy with abundant opportunities. And there are many, many very helpful public policies promoting job opportunities and settlement easiness, and also bigger and faster infrastructure links. So all of that is helping young talents from all over China, Hong Kong, Macau, but also mainland cities to find better job opportunities over there. Then we had a member coming from Xinjiang province, a young person who specializes in making short video on platforms, and he became apparently very popular. That also tells me that there are also very new and emerging opportunities that we never imagined, probably just 5 years ago. Now, because short video economy is becoming really a bigger part of the national economy, so that creates opportunities as well. So there are linkages and connections between the human resources provision on the one hand and abundant job opportunities on the other.
What you said really just struck a chord with me. There is not a lack of opportunities, but at a time like this, it's all about placing the right people with those opportunities, and that's what some of those political advisors have been trying to do here. I do want to stay on the topic of education. That is your field as well. One of the advisors talked about the opportunities of vocational education and the important change of perception that has to come, that vocational education is not a good start, but he gave great examples, telling examples of people that started with modest vocational education, but then went on to have very successful careers. He talked about this one guy who studied computer science at vocational schools, went on to be a successful businessman in AI, and that did not just change his life, but his household, and he was able to bring that experience back to more people. Talk to us about what you think.
Yeah, I mean, there has been this traditional, conventional opinion in the society that it seems that graduates from vocational training schools or vocational education institutes do not hold a very high social status. Only those kids who are not able to get into the colleges would go to the vocational
That's
education.
changing now. That's actually changing.
Exactly. That's changing. It's changing because now opportunities are becoming more abundant in the manufacturing sector, in high technology, in digital economy, etc., etc. So all of those sectors will need skilled workers, and not all of the skilled workers can graduate from colleges. And in fact, colleges have performed a different function in terms of training young talents, who are more intellectually oriented. Whereas the vocational training institutes are supposed to train skilled workers. So that's the right track. And now with abundant opportunities are rising. I'm confident that more and more young people would rather, change their mindset and impression of the traditional vocational education institutes. At the same time, there have been reforms in terms of, like I said earlier, there have been education groups established to connect education institutes on the vocational side and the manufacturing and businesses, so that hands-on experiences can be, practiced and taught to these young talents.
Professor Wang, we appreciate your analysis. Thanks so much for coming in today.
Thank you.
And that for me, Zhong Shi. And before we go, just a quick reminder that Chinese Foreign Minister Qin Gang will meet the press on China's foreign policy and foreign relations. He will take questions from both Chinese and foreign journalists. CGTN will bring you special coverage starting from 9:30 a.m. Beijing time or 1:30 GMT. I'll be back with more coverage on that. In the meantime, news continues with my colleagues in Washington. Stay with us.